99% of guitarists struggle with one thing that's holding them back, making faster chord changes, learning more complex riffs, and mastering scale runs. Since 2006, I've taught hundreds of guitar students and tested countless exercises, but this is by far the most effective one. It works on all the techniques you'll need, and the best part, you'll see noticeable results in just a week. In this video, I'll reveal the same 3-step formula that has helped my students. But in order to see results, you will need to follow each step correctly. But before we jump into the first step, let's tackle an important question. Why do so many guitarists struggle with this in the first place? Here's a quick test. Hold each hand up, fingers pointing towards the ceiling, and try to bend one finger at a time without moving the others. You might manage some fingers, but often 2 or more will want to move together. It's like your brain tells one finger to move, but another one has to join in. But why? Our fingers are naturally connected by tendons and muscles that act like pulleys. So when one moves, others tend to follow. We can look at our fingers as misbehaved children. You want them to do something, but they just do something completely different. So we need to train these children to behave properly. But how do we do that? Well, the first step is the crucial one. We need to identify which combination of fingers are the most misbehaved before moving on. Be prepared, some of these exercises might feel really challenging, but don't worry, as we go through this I'll share some really valuable tips that will make it easier. Start with your pointer finger on the 9th fret of the D string. From there, place your middle finger on the 10th fret of the G string, and your ring finger on the 11th fret of the B string, and then your pinky on the 12th fret of the high E string. Now you've got the shape down, we refer to this as the bass shape. So here are 6 mini tests to identify which combinations are slowing you down. Pay attention to how each one feels and note the difficulty before moving on to the next. Let's start with test 1. First, without moving your 3rd and 4th fingers, swap the strings that your index and middle fingers are on. Try to move them at the same time and as precisely as possible. Next, we do the same with the 1st and 3rd fingers. Start with the bass shape, then swap your 1 and 3 without moving 2 and 4. For me, this is definitely harder than working with my 1 and 2 fingers. Now, we're going to do the same thing between the 1 and the 4 fingers. So we hold the 2 and 3 fingers down, and then we swap the 1 and the 4 around. Some might find the stretch quite hard, but we'll explore ways to make it easier in step 2. Just remember to note which combinations feel the hardest. Next up, the 2 and 3 fingers. Start with the bass shape, and this time we hold the 1 and 4 fingers down, and then swap the 2 and 3 round. If you like a 1-page sheet with all the diagrams from this and tips sent to your inbox every now and then to help you grow as a musician, please click in the link in the description. It's completely free and you can unsubscribe anytime. Now this is where things start to get tough for most players. Hold down the 1 and 3 fingers while swapping the 2 and 4. This is definitely the one I found the trickiest, but after getting comfortable with it, made chord changing so much quicker. Finally, we have the 3 and 4 fingers, which is also very challenging for a lot of players. Without lifting the 1 and 2 fingers, swap the 3 and 4 fingers around. Before looking at step 2, take a moment to rank combinations from hardest to easiest. But here's the thing, speed alone isn't enough. It's just as important to ensure the notes ring out cleanly. Without clean notes, it's like playing through a speaker with a damaged woofer, mid-driver or tweeter. The sound just won't be right. So this is where we move on to step number 2. Let's go back to test 1, but this time we pluck each string to check for dud notes. And if you find one, stop, correct it, and then go back. The goal is to have all your notes ring out clearly every time you switch positions. Next, we do the same with the 1st and 3rd fingers. Pluck the bass shape and then switch. If you get a dud note, here's a pro tip. Try to position your fingers more upright, move your nails closer to the thicker string. And remember, the aim is to achieve a clear, ringing sound every time you switch. Now we're going to do the same thing between the 1 and the 4 fingers. A lot of students find the pinky stretch particularly challenging. Play around with your thumb position behind the neck, as well as your wrist and elbow angle. Adjusting these can help you twist your wrist just enough to make the stretch easier. Now we move on to the 2nd and 3rd fingers. As you work through the 6 parts, take note of which finger combinations you find most challenging. Now let's move on to my least favourite shape. This one took the longest to master, but it's incredibly valuable. I use my pinky in this way all the time for chords and scale runs. Next, we move on to test 6, which is another awkward one. But just remember, your fingers will adapt and train themselves over time. Think of it like yoga for your fingers. Now I want to see in the comments which combinations you found the hardest. This step should have highlighted some issues with your finger independence. However, all of this effort will be pointless if you're unsure on how to practice these exercises, but more importantly, how to develop them further. So firstly, let's look at how to practice this. And if you work smartly, honestly, 5 minutes is enough. It works as a great warm-up exercise. Look back at your list from step 1. Select the most difficult finger combination, then set a timer for 20 seconds. Focus purely on speed, moving as quickly as possible. And here's a good tip. Keep taking your hand on and off after, say, like 3 or 4 reps. Next, set the timer for 40 seconds, and this is where we're picking each note and making sure each note is ringing through. If you do get a dud note, we need to stop and correct it and figure out why that note is dud before moving on. Do a few reps, then take your hand off the fretboard and place it back again. This resets your fingers and helps you train your brain to remember how to move your fingers independently. You may even only just get 1 repetition or even none for the first few days. But as you progress through the week, if you're working on these things, you will see results. Then I'll spend another minute on each of the combinations you are finding most challenging. And whatever time you've got left, just divide this up evenly so you are spending a bit of time on the ones that you're finding a bit easier. Once these exercises start to feel easier, it's time to level up. Here are 5 extra levels you can do. So for level 1, we simply take our bass shape and move it down 1 fret and repeat the practice tasks. As we move down 1 fret at a time and do the same thing, we're increasing the stretch, making it harder each time. And finally, when we get down to here, it's really working on your strength, your flexibility to work on those scale runs and wide chord shapes. Level 2. So for level 2, we take that original shape and we move it onto the next set of strings, and we're going to add an extra difficulty where we actually have to mute the E string with whatever finger is on the A string. We do this a lot when we're playing chords, so it's so important to train every finger to be able to control that E string. So for the first one, our index finger mutes the E. Then when we swap our 1 and 2, our middle finger has to mute the low E. And then for the next one, third finger. And then for the last one, our pinky finger. Now for level 3, we take our original shape again, and now we're getting a little bit of a stretch in. Not too much, just a little bit. So we're going to take our first finger and move it onto the A string. And then we're going to repeat all the exercises that we've done before. And as you see, some of these will kind of feel the same, like the 2 and 3, the 2 and 4, and the 3 and 4. Then from here, take your second finger, move it up to the D string. We do the same thing. And this time we're going to see a 1 and 3, 1 and 4. And now the 2 and 3 get a bit more of a stretch. 2 and 4, and then 3 and 4 will be the same. Then finally we would move the third finger up to the G string and then do the same. Obviously be picking each of these as well, so don't forget that. When we move the pinky back up, we're back to that standard shape again. Then for level 4, this is where we're going to get some real stretching in now. I'm going to take this bass shape, I'm going to move this all the way up to the 15th fret, so up in the dusty end of the fretboard. The reason why is, you'll find out in a minute, we need to stretch some combinations of fingers that don't like getting stretched. From here, we're going to take our index finger, move it down to the 14th fret. We'll do all the combinations. And you will find there's definitely a lot harder than before. From here, once you've gone through all of them, you will then take our middle finger down. Okay, now this is, for me personally, this is the hardest combination of fingers. I'm really not flexible in this area of these fingers. And I don't think anyone is really. It's sort of an unnatural thing for your hand to do. But give it a try. You know, don't force it, don't hurt yourself by doing it. From here, we're then going 14, 15, 16, and then stretching out to the 18. Then we move on to level 5, and this is when we take our bass shape and change it. So you can change it multiple ways. You can maybe go the other way around, so you're like a stairway pattern, like a major 7 chord. And then from here, you would do all your different finger combinations, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, etc. And you can repeat 1 and 4, so there's endless things you can do with this. So this 5-minute a day warm-up trains your fingers in multiple ways, improving your speed, your clarity, and your independence. And if you make a habit of this, I promise that you'll see real progress. But all of this will be a waste of time if you fall in the trap that I have done many, many times. And that's why I go through my biggest mistakes after 27 years of playing in this corner right up here. So go and click on that, and I'll see you over there. Remember to discover, learn, and create something inspiring today. See you in the next one. Cheers, guys. Over and out.